First thing I'd say is the conversation that's been reported over the last couple of days is not new news. The reality is we've been having this conversation with the SNFL and the AFL for a number of years around second tier competition. Second thing is it's really an ongoing conversation that we're having with the AFL. If you look at the AFL competition, there's a whole lot of equalisation measures across the competition, whether it be salary caps, NGA academies, father-son. One of those other really important equalisation measures, in our view, has to be second tier competitions. And so that's a conversation that we're having on an ongoing basis with the AFL. And we look forward to having those conversations. The reality for us is the Port Adelaide Football Club's been in the AFL now for 26 years, and we've been having this conversation around second tier in one way or another for all of that time. So with Tasmania coming in soon, issues in Western Australia, the reality is there are 14 clubs at the moment operating in a second tier structure. There are 4 clubs that are operating a different second tier structure, and that's the conversation that we'd like to continue to have.
In a dream world, would you like to have that by 2025?
Look, I'm not going to put a timeline on it. What we would like though is our role is to make sure we're providing an environment that's going to give our players the best chance to develop and perform at AFL level. And there are 14 clubs operating in a very different structure to the one that we're operating in.
Has West Coast Waffle agreement ending at the end of 2024, has that kind of put a time pressure on this in any way or sped up the process?
No, not at all. As I said, we've been having this conversation in one form or another for a couple of years. We met with the AFL recently, and there were a number of strategic priorities that we discussed with them, and second tier competitions was one of those.
Have there been investigations within those conversations around breaking the contract with SANFL? You're contracted till 2028. How much would it cost to breach that contract to join the National Reserves comp?
Sure. Look, yes, absolutely. There's a licence agreement in place for Port Adelaide to play in the SNFL until 2028. What we would say though is that this should be about what's best for football. That's actually, I think we would all agree that the structure that's in place at the moment is suboptimal for both parties. Not sure about the timeline, but let's actually work out what's best for football in South Australia and nationally. And then really the money, I'm sure we can work that out afterwards, but this should be about what's best for football.
I can't imagine SANFL will willingly let the club go early though. And so have there been investigations about the cost that would come with that?
Look, as I said, it really should be about what's best for the game. There are some concerning, participation is down, talent potentially is down, so there are some concerning indicators in South Australia, and what we're saying is we want to be part of that solution, and second tier is part of that conversation also.
It's not a new conversation, but does the gap become more stark as time goes on when you look at some of the Queensland and New South Wales teams as well now joining the VFL?
Well, as I said before, this is 26 years now we've been in the AFL, even since we put the club back together as one club in 2011, 2012. That's now 13, 14 seasons ago. The structure that was put in place at that time was really an interim structure. Here we are again. Now, yes, there's an agreement in place until 2028. Our view is let's actually start having that conversation now and work out what is best for football at a national level. So that's absolutely, again, I reinforce that this is really for the AFL to consider, is if you were designing the AFL competition and second tier competitions right now, would you have the second tier structure that is in place? Of course you wouldn't. So there's got to be a better model that supports the AFL clubs in their the way that they develop their talent.
How'd you jump to the VFL before it became a fully national competition?
As I said, all we're doing is we're having this conversation to say that the AFL need to look at second tier structure as an important part of the equalisation measures across the competition.
Have you spoken to Adelaide, Fremantle and the West Coast about this?
No, not directly.
SANFL says it's not aware of any exit discussions. What do you say to that?
I've had regular conversations with the SANFL. I haven't spoken with them over the last couple of months. but in our conversations with the SANFL are aware that the structure that's in place at the moment is is not optimal for both parties.
And is this something that you have or will put to the membership base and see what they want out of the future of the club?
Look, I'm sure that the members of the Port Adelaide Football Club will want what's best for the Port Adelaide Footy Club. The members made a decision in 1994 to move to the AFL competition and be an AFL club. And with that, this is probably one of those decisions that if this is best for the Port Adelaide Football Club in order to provide our athletes with the best chance to develop and win in a national competition, I'm sure they would support that.
You said it's up to the AFL. What's kind of the stuff that they have to look at as part of this outside of, I guess, the national reserves competition?
Yeah, it's a whole range of measures. As I said, the AFL competition is one of the most equalised professional sports leagues in the world, and you look at all the measures that are used across the competition in order to drive equalisation. The AFL have done an incredible job when you look at the competition and how close it is. But you look at NGA academies in Queensland and New South Wales and the talent that are starting to come through into those academies. You look at father-son rules are different from club to club and state to state, and second tier competitions is also part of that.
Would you be able to get, I guess, higher quality players playing for your reserves team as top-up players if you went down that path? Yeah,
as I said, it's not really about the detail. It's fundamentally more about if the AFL are serious about equalisation, second tier competitions have to be part of that conversation.
Do you understand the concerns about potentially losing your attachment to some of your really proud history when it comes to things like the Magpies name and the Prison Bars jumper?
Well, as I said, the Port Adelaide Football Club is 153 years old. We're doing an unbelievable redevelopment here at Alberton Oval at our home. We're playing in the AFL competition. We're playing in the AFLW competition. And whatever is best for the Port Adelaide Football Club and more generally for football will be where that lands. So, we understand the passion and the emotion that sits around it, but, the Port Adelaide Football Club is stronger now than it's ever been.
For those fans who who might be concerned, what would happen to the Prison Bars Guernsey if the move was made?
Yeah, again, that's all just detail that we don't really need to get into. I mean, we're wearing the prison bars now annually in the AFL. I would imagine if we're playing home games at Alberton Oval, we would still be wearing the prison bars in the SNFL. Really importantly, Port Adelaide, though, yes, we celebrate our past and our rich history and heritage because that's actually what got us to this point. But Port Adelaide has always been about moving forward and what's next. And what we're talking about here is just the next evolution of what's best for Port Adelaide and, importantly, what's best for football.
Are you expecting some pushback to that, of course, from Collingwood if you are to want to wear those prison bars in an AFL Reserves comp?
Yeah, as I said, all we're talking about is we're having a conversation with the AFL about what's best for football in relation to second tier, and that's where the conversation is.
What kind of conversations with the AFL? Is this an immediate conversation for them, something that they are looking at doing in the next few years, or do you think it's something that might take a bit more time?
No, it's been an ongoing conversation over the last couple of years around equalisation, including second tier.
Aside from the contract stuff, what kind of figures are being thrown around on establishing a national second tier comp? Obviously there's all the travel, there's different wages, there's a whole nother system around it.
Yeah, so again, I'll say it again, it's really about what's best for, there's so many equalisation measures already through the competition. We've got 14 teams playing in one structure and 4 teams playing in different structures. So what we're saying to the AFL is part of their review of all the equalisation measures across the competition in order to create a competition that's as even as it possibly can with all the inequities. Second tier has to be part of that conversation.
For those who don't know, what are kind of some of the disadvantages? What are some of the disadvantages that you face in the SANFL that have kind of prompted you to look down this path?
Look, it's not so much about disadvantages in the SANFL. Like we've been an important part of the SANFL. We're a foundation club of the SANFL, and we've got a very rich history in the SNFL that we're incredibly proud of. So it's not about what we don't have. it's about, if you look at the AFL competition, there are clubs at the moment that we believe have an advantage in terms of talent development for their existing players and also for future players. And our concern is if we stay with the structure at the moment, which we believe is compromised, that'll get to a point where it becomes a disadvantage for us in terms of how we develop our talent.
Is it too far gone now in terms of your relationship with the sample? Is there anything they can do that would get you to stay, or does it need to be that national reserve?
Yeah, like I said right at the top, this isn't a new story. We haven't gone into the SNFL and said we're out. That's not what's happened at all. It's an ongoing conversation that we're having with the AFL. We've been having this conversation with the SNFL for a number of years also, and our view is we need to bring it to a head and start having this conversation now to work out what is best for football in South Australia, because there are some concerns around the game in South Australia, and how can we be part of that solution? And then secondly, with the AFL, how are we going to create a football structure that provides, one, supports the structure that underpins it and the grassroots and the tiers below it, but also provides the 18 clubs with the best possible structure and the most even structure in order to develop its talent.
Would you need the Crows to come along for the ride? Would that help the process?
Look, I can't speak for the Crows. That really would be for them to speak about.
Is the only
with the sample over the past few years, as you said, has there been conversations about changing the rules or tweaking them at all?
Yeah, we meet with the SNFL on a regular basis, and we're talking about that. And I think each year there are tweaks to the SNFL listed player rules. So we're trying to do all of those things, but also at the same time we appreciate how difficult that is for the SNFL and the SNFL clubs. We hear the unhappiness at times around having AFL teams in an SNFL competition. So we appreciate that. And I guess that's also, we're not saying that we've got the solution. What we're saying is that we need to work with the AFL, because really this is an issue for the AFL in terms of how they are thinking about second tier competitions around the country.
On another matter, where are we at with replacing Bassett?
I'm not even sure.
There's a big going on.
Yeah. And then I also wanted to ask about Cassini. Why did we delist him with 1 year left on his contract?
Look, all of those are decisions that are made by the list management team. Our list management team do a fantastic job, and so their decisions made by the list management team.
I just had one contractual question. Is it right, or it's been reported loosely, that Port would have to give 12 months notice to the sample? Is that sort of
that's correct. That's right. Yeah, so, again, we're not saying we're out in 2024. That's not what we're here doing. What we're saying is we're having a conversation with the AFL about what's best for the AFL clubs and the AFL nationally around second tier competitions. Because if you look around the country, there are a lot of issues with second tier. And in our view, it's time for the AFL to go, okay, let's actually create an AFL Reserves competition and then work from there.
Is the only solution to that an AFL Reserves comp? Is there a chance that there could be a solution with the SANFL, or is inevitably, do you want to eventually make that move?
Look, I think inevitably the differences are getting bigger and bigger. So I think inevitably the best thing for the game nationally is that there is a national reserves competition. And then what you can do is you can then work out what is best for the state leagues and the leagues that work below that.